The Theranos story is, so I had a very famous investor tell me, this was like 2015, 2016. And I said, guys, we were just talking. I said, what do you like? What do you like? Like, we all kind of talk like that at some point whenever we interact, and he said, this company, Theranos, you have to, maybe it was 2014. Anyways, 2015. Theranos. And I said, are you an investor? And he said, no, but I wish I was. It's incredible. And I tried to get an introduction. And I thought, okay, this is going to be really interesting. I couldn't get an introduction. But then I find out who the board is, and instantly I get turned off. So in my mind, I had a very negative impression because the board was literally not all 90-year-olds. And I thought, what do 90-year-olds know about, blood testing and, basically building a tricorder? And at that time, I think I told this story before, but I had burned about maybe 50, 75 million bucks on 6 different startups trying to do this, like, in situ kind of like, finger prick blood testing, blah, blah, blah. So I was really fascinated with the space. A year and a half later, a guy that I work with at Facebook, a very senior guy, says to me, I'm thinking, and I was trying to recruit him to come work at one of my companies as CEO. I'm thinking of going to Theranos. And I said, just go to the interview and tell me what happens. Before I, try to convince you to not go. He goes into the interview to be COO of this fucking company. They don't let him past reception. They interview him in a makeshift room outside of the meeting. And he said, well, can I, go inside? And, when do we have a follow-up interview? I'd like to meet some of the team. I want to see what it is. And they said, no, we're good. Here's your offer letter. Do you want to join? Well, can I see the device? Can I try it? No, we're good. Let's go. And I said to this guy, I said, how can you fucking join this company? I mean, it's not like you're coming in as like a junior flunky. You're coming in as the second or third most important person in this business. You haven't been past reception. You don't even know what's past reception. You don't even know what your office will look like. You don't even know if you like the office furniture. At that basic level, think about everything else that comes after that. And then, what happened. So
what a disaster. William Perry, former head of Secretary of Defense, Henry Kissinger. I mean, it was like...
It was a bunch of Grand Poobah types. That's how you knew it was a red flag. If you got one of those guys, you got one guy like Kissinger on your board, it's okay. If they're all like that, it's a problem.
Huge red flag.
I go on CNBC. I just had John Carreyrou from the Wall Street Journal, who broke this thing wide open, on my podcast. And I start getting all these inside tips about Theranos. And one of them was that Elizabeth Holmes and Balwani, who was the COO, were in a relationship together. They lived at the same address, all this nonsense. And I check with Carreyrou and I'm like, hey, is this true? And he's like, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I was like, why didn't you report it? He's like, I'm just chasing it down, whatever. It'll be in the next story. So I go on CNBC and I was like, listen, when there's smoke, there's fire. If they had the device, my game theory is if you have the device, you show it. If you don't have the goods, you don't show it. Period. End of story. I think my gut tells me this is a total fraud. It'll be zero. And they're like, oh, and I was like, yeah. And when the COO and the CEO are in a relationship, that's bad. And they're like, what? And they didn't know this. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, that's what people are telling me. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know firsthand knowledge, but that's what I think is going on. So this whole thing blows up. Calacanis says this, blah, 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 CNBC. That night, I got invited to Beep's house in the Valley for movie night. We've all been to that movie night.
Yeah.
I walk in. There's Zuck. There's this famous person. There's this Googler, that person. It's 50 people, and the celebrities who are in the blockbuster movie are there. I think it was the movie Arrival, but I'm not going to make I don't want to give away whose house it was. I go to this secret movie night. I walk in, I get greeted, and I kid you not, 15 feet in front of me, looking directly at me, is Elizabeth Holmes. And I get with her like 10 feet her, and she just looks at me, snarls, and walks away. It's like the most uncomfortable moment of my life. Clearly a giant scam and fraud. And she's going to go to jail too, by the way. She's going on trial this month, August, I believe. She'll be on trial.
It's taking way too long.
And I hope she goes. Yeah, I mean, the justice system's a little bit screwed. Okay, we got to wrap up with one more story.
Cal, you have a pretty good track record of calling out these frauds. Yeah. I think it's a service to the community.
Yeah, I agree.
You're one of the few who actually does it.
You got any other budding frauds?
Well, Ripple, you called out Ripple, right?
Oh, let's go easy on the Ripple. To some people who are friends with Ripple. Well, I think now
you're backing off.
I'm not backing off. I just don't want to lose a member of our little quartet here. But I will say that my fraud of the moment, the one that's making my spidey sense go crazy, is Tether. USDT. These guys are, I mean, this feels like it is going to be a $60 billion.
The crypto thing.
The stable coin. There's a crypto stable coin. The idea is they said it's $1 in US currency, $1 per Tether. Always. And then over time, we find out maybe they don't have $1 in their bank account for each one. The New York Attorney General fines them $18 million, says you can't work with anybody in New York. They say, we're not a fraud. And I'm like, well, what about the Attorney General who said you were a fucking fraud? And they're like, no, that was a misunderstanding, yada, yada. I'm like, there's no misunderstandings.
You know what we should do?
Period.
You know what we should do? We should get all the fans, the All In Pod. We're going to declare a certain time and date and we encourage everyone who's in Tether to pull out a Tether to stress the system and see what happens.
Yeah, let's stress test. Well, the problem is you don't actually own your Tethers. That's the other scam. It's like 8 or 9 of these offshore, unregulated crypto exchanges, not the ones in the United States that are highly regulated like Coinbase. This is offshore, and there are what I've been told is you can create an exchange yourself with white label software and pop up your own casino.
You're like a bloodhound. I mean, like you just got to sniff this shit out.
I got nothing else in my life. When I find this out, I like it. I love it. It's like one of my favorite things.
He's a Bronx brawler. He's roaming the streets looking for a fight.
Brooklyn.
I mean, exactly.
I love a good fight. I love a good fight.
He's got nothing going on right now. Yeah.
There's some other people I want to call out. So let's move on to it.
Scott Galloway? Dipshit?
No, he's small potatoes. But
he's small potato, irrelevant.
Doesn't Sachs look like Thurston Howell III on his
He does on a yacht.
Yeah.
All right, so Jason's in Florence. Chamath is at his estate.
I'll tell you where I am. Actually, Jake, you'll appreciate this. I'm on a boat outside Elba, which is the...
Isola d'Elba.
Yeah, it's where Napoleon was imprisoned. I'll show you the prison where he was kept. I think you can see it. I mean, if I get to the right spot.
You know what? We put the Nicola founder in there, and we'll put Elizabeth Holmes in there. Same place. Let's go.
Can you see the
just see your fucking ugly face.
There, whatever.
And your beautiful yacht.